Kentucky, and it's based on cost. And the way, it's a complicated kind of formula, but basically in simple terms, what it does is says, we're going to reimburse Martin County what it costs to run transportation in like districts. In other words, districts that are similar to Martin County in density, we put them in a pool, a formula, and average their cost, and we'll reimburse them. Well, when the state started running out of money, they quit funding transportation at 100%. They're now funding it at 60%. But your cost of transportation is $100,000 over the 60% number. So, you know, without the Head Start program, you need to cut $100,000 out of your transportation program before you're equal to like districts in efficiency in running your program. So those are the kinds of things. One of the big things I would say to you is you now have more than 80% of your Fund 1 budget in personnel. I'm not telling you you can't run a school district at 80%, but I'm telling you it'll be tough. And in just a minute, I'll show you why it's tough. You need to try to get that in the high 70s to 75 if you can, or no more than 75 to 78% of your Fund 1 money is in personnel. And one of the reasons is that when you run into a tight situation like you are now, and you're at 80% and above, you don't have any choice but to cut personnel. You box yourself in a corner where, you know, if you try to cut the cost of diesel, you shoot yourself in the foot. So all you do is cut personnel. Now the thing I want to encourage you to do is if you cut personnel at what I call overhead costs. And I define overhead costs as anything that's not directly related to the instructional program. Now, you know, I'm not saying that classified staff's not important. They are very important. But when you cut teachers, you're cutting the instructional program. And I know, you know, you cut less than half as many teachers to get the same dollar as if you have to cut other people. And I understand very well the pressure to keep people employed. All I ask you to do is put equal pressure on producing quality education for the students in Martin County. Now, what I consider overhead costs, the classified staff generally, the transportation program, and administrators and supervisors. And that's not to say that all of those are not important. It's just to say that you've got to be as effective and efficient in those positions as you possibly can be. You've got to protect your instructional program. Now the other thing that I think I see a lot of evidence of is, I think one of the things we've learned in the last 15 years in Kentucky is that high-performing schools have a principal, a strong instructional leader in the school. And you're doing some things that's undermining that you have in the past.
What sort of things?
Okay, I can't find any evidence that the principals know how much Section 6 money they have, or that they have a budget for it. Section 6 money is the money that's to be used basically for instructional supplies.
Okay, yeah, that's the $100 per student we allocate. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the way that's supposed to work is that you decide how much per student it is. The principals are told how much you've got. They work with their site-based council to produce a budget. The budget's approved by the superintendent, central office, and then they go run their budget. They come back a year later and say, here's what I produced with my budget. And when they've got control of that budget, you can hold them accountable for the outcomes. Most principals don't have any idea how much money they've got. And there's evidence that they didn't get all the $100. last year.
But they got very little of it.
And I would suggest to you that may be a violation of the Kentucky statute.
It is.
I'm not a lawyer.
It is.
And I don't want to go there because for some reasons that I don't want to discuss. I don't mind discussing them, but it's just that I'm here to try to improve the situation and move forward, not to look back. Some of you may know that I kind of insisted on not doing this review until after the 1st of July because I don't want to look back. I want to try to help you move forward.
I think what we're looking at is, like you said, how we got here to this position, how we can remedy it, and how we can prevent it from happening again. That's basically what we need to do.
You know, another evidence is I asked how many staff, what's been done about staff reduction, and I was told that 17 teachers were notified that they wouldn't be rehired. And, you know, my next question is, how many classified people were notified? Not any. Well, you know, I'm sorry, but when you say you're going to reduce your teaching staff by 17 people and you're not going to reduce any other staff, you're sending a message to the community, to the students, to the teachers, to all the staff, what your priority is.
But that also includes, as you said a while ago, there's a lower run to classify, but that also includes the administrators, right?
It includes administrators that are not directly involved in the instructional program.
Okay.
Right. Right. 2 minutes. As you start reducing expenditures, let me encourage you to address equity. And equity needs to be based on student enrollment. Equity is not based on each school gets so much of whatever. It's based on the number of students that they have to deal with. One example of where I think there's not equity is that each school, regardless of size, has a finance secretary, an attendance clerk, and a school secretary. Well, if you look at your enrollment and say that that's equitable, you know, it doesn't fit. So you've got to look at equity based on student enrollment to allocate your fund. One of the things that's a problem for transportation, and could even balance the transportation budget almost, is that the law says that all non-to and from school expenditures for transportation have to be reimbursed from another source. In other words, field trips, athletic trips, those kinds of things, there has to be another financial source that reimburses transportation. That is not being done uniformly. I would encourage you again, you know, in order to get the budget in order, what you've got to do is do planning. The superintendent, with his leadership, create a plan, create a budget, and then hand it to the manager and say, you're going to get a chance to manage this for the next 9 months, and we'll talk about how well you did and whether you get to do it again next year at the end of 9 months. And so, you know, the schools need a budget for transportation, extracurricular activities. You can require them to take most of it out of their Section 6 money if you give them $100 a student. You know, and if they can't get it all out of that in your judgment, you can supplement it some way. But at the end of the day, you give them a budget and say, when you spend this, if you don't have money left to go to the district tournament, you're going to have to go raise the money. We don't have any more money. We've allocated all we've got. And so, you know, they've got to be responsible for doing it. There's some other things in the report I'll be happy to address in some fashion. There are some things in the report that get to personnel real quick. And some of them may even get to individuals. I would prefer we not discuss that in a public meeting. I don't think it's appropriate. And then the last thing I want to say is, I think you selected I never knew Mr. Meadows until July 1st. I think you selected a good leader. I want to encourage you to give him 100% support for 3 years. And then you can decide whether you want to hire him to do it again.
And make it right before last.
But for 3 years, he's gonna need your support, because he's got some tough decisions to make. And I want to encourage you to do that. And knowing full well that at the end of 3 years, you get to decide then what you want to do again. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you going to be able to stay around? You know,